Discipline weighs ounces, regret weighs tons. Choose your burden wisely. That's the law of life. You can pay now or you can pay later, but later always costs more. Discipline is the small, uncomfortable decision you make in the moment. It's waking up early. It's putting in the reps. It's saying no to distractions. And while that may sting for a moment, regret burns far longer. It's the light that leads you. Regret keeps you awake at night, wondering what could have been if only you had stuck to the plan. Every disciplined action begins a ripple of progress. One small act of courage can spark a lifetime of results. You don't always see the payoff right away, but you feel the shift. You walk taller. You speak clearer. You develop pride in the little victories. On the other hand, regret is a seed too, planted in the soil of procrastination, and it grows into frustration, into missed chances, into bitterness. Discipline gives you momentum. Regret drains it. Discipline is doing what you should do, even when the mood is gone. That's the real test. Anyone can work when it's easy or exciting, but champions push through when it's boring, inconvenient, or painful. That's the edge. That's the cost of greatness. Regret only shows up when you ignore that cost, when you trade short-term comfort for long-term consequence. And you never really avoid the pain. You just delay it. The small pain of saying no today saves the bigger pain of wishing tomorrow. The pain of not eating the junk. The pain of making the call. The pain of writing the goals. It's uncomfortable, but it's clean. Regret is messy. It leads you. It lingers. What asks? Why didn't I? And the worst part, it's always preventable. All you had to do was choose discipline. Just once, then again. That's how it stacks. So here's the truth, and you suffer either way. The question is, do you suffer for a purpose or suffer because you had none? Discipline hurts, but it's purposeful. It sharpens you. Regret is it that leads you. It's empty. So take the pain that builds your character. Embrace the price that purchases your future. The light that leads you, because the weight of discipline may slow you down, but the weight of regret can stop you entirely. Every disciplined action begins a ripple of progress. Regret begins a cycle of excuse. When you take that first disciplined step, getting up early, planning your day, saying no to distractions, you begin to shift the direction of your life. One right decision leads to another. Progress feeds progress. You build a rhythm, and with that rhythm comes confidence. Now, you're not just hoping things will change. You're making it happen. That's the power of disciplining. It sets things in motion. Regret, on the other hand, is sneaky. It starts small too, like skipping that workout or ignoring that opportunity or telling yourself, I'll do it tomorrow. Before long, those small moments become habits, and those habits become excuses. You start explaining instead of achieving, and excuses multiply. You blame the time, the weather, the people, the past. But the truth is, regret doesn't come from one big failure. It comes from 1,000 tiny surrenders to comfort. When you're disciplined, even in the smallest areas, you send a message to yourself. I'm in control. That message matters. It builds identity. It rewires how you think. Soon, discipline isn't just something you do, it's who you are. But when you live in regret, you start believing you're stuck, that you're behind, that it's too late. And from that place, it gets harder and harder to start over. The longer the excuses run, the harder they are to catch. So understand this: discipline opens the door to forward motion. One action, one improvement, one shift at a time. It starts a ripple that touches every part of your life. But regret begins a loop, a cycle. And if you're not careful, you'll be spinning in the same circle for years, convincing yourself that your limitations are facts, not choices. That's the difference. Discipline gives you leverage. Regret drains it. So take the action. Do the small thing that starts the big wave. You never know how far a ripple can travel until you make it. Discipline is doing what you should do even when you don't feel like it. That's the key. Anyone can act when motivation is high, when the mood is right, when everything feels exciting. But what about the days when you're tired? When it's raining? When no one's watching and no one's cheering? That's when discipline steps in. That's when character is formed. Discipline says, I'll do it anyway. Not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Your feelings will fluctuate. That's human. Some days you'll feel like a warrior. Other days you'll feel like hiding. But discipline doesn't check how you feel before it moves. It checks your priorities. It checks your vision. It checks your commitment that leads you. Because discipline doesn't need to feel good to do good. It shows up out of respect for the future you're building. That leads you. Every time you act in spite of your feelings, you strengthen your will. That's what builds internal power. You start proving to yourself that you are not ruled by mood, you are guided by mission. And that shift, that's when life starts to change. You stop waiting for inspiration and start becoming the kind of person others look to for inspiration. Regret, on the other hand, is always fueled by feelings. I didn't feel like it. It wasn't the right moment. I was tired. And yet, none of those feelings will comfort you when the opportunity is gone. The regret doesn't care how you felt in the moment. It just shows up when the moment has passed and you're left with nothing to show for it. So remember, discipline may not always feel good at the start, but it always feels right in the end. And when you do what you should, even when you don't feel like it, you win. Not just the task, not just the goal. You win a piece of yourself back. And over time, that becomes a life of pride instead of a life of excuse. The small pain of saying, no, today saves the bigger pain of wishing tomorrow. That's the truth most people learn too late. Saying no to laziness, to distractions, to temptations. It's uncomfortable in the moment. It stings. It feels like you're missing out. But what you're really doing is making room for something better. That moment of self-denial is like a down payment on your future. You give up a little now so you don't lose a lot later. People think saying no is about restriction, but it's actually about direction. Every no to something that doesn't serve you is a yes to something that does. When you say no to scrolling, you say yes to focus. When you say no to overspending, you say yes to freedom. When you say no to quitting, you say yes to progress. It's not about punishment. It's about purpose. But regret comes when you don't say no soon enough. You let things slide. You compromise yourself just this once, and that once becomes a habit. Then one day, you look back and realize how much time, energy, and opportunity was lost simply because you didn't have the courage to choose discomfort early. That's the cost of avoiding small pain. It becomes a heavy burden down the line. Discipline feels like sacrifice in the beginning, but it turns into satisfaction. Regret feels like comfort in the beginning, but it turns into disappointment. You've got to choose which feeling you want to face. Momentary discomfort or long-term discontent. One builds you, the other breaks you. So the next time you're tempted to give in, just remember the pain of saying no today may only last a few minutes, but the pain of wishing you had that can last a lifetime. Choose wisely. The future that leads you. The future is always listening to the choices you make now. Regret is the price you pay for skipping the price of discipline. And here's the hard truth. One price is paid upfront. The other is paid with interest. Discipline asks for small, daily investments. It asks for early mornings, honest effort, a few sacrifices here and there. It's uncomfortable, sure, but it's manageable. You know exactly what it costs, and the return is always worth it. Regret, on the other hand, sends the bill when you're least prepared, when you've run out of chances to fix what you ignored. Skipping discipline feels easy now, but the consequences compound quietly. You don't notice the damage at first. You say, It's just one missed day. It's just one bad choice. But over time, those little compromises build a wall between you and your goals. And by the time you look up, the opportunity has moved on. That's when regret knocks, loud and heavy. Discipline is the price of control. It puts your life in your hands. It says, you decide. But regret is what shows up when you give that control away. When you let the moment win instead of the mission, and it always costs more. It costs peace, potential. It costs years you can't get back. You see, you either pay in discomfort now or in disappointment later. That's the law. And while discipline can sting, regret has a way of haunting. It doesn't just remind you of what you didn't do. It reminds you of who you could have been. That's a steep price to pay for comfort. So make the trade early. Embrace the struggle. Pay the price while it's small. Because if you don't, life will hand you the bill anyway. And by then, it might be too high to afford. Those 5 minutes of discipline compound into a lifetime of freedom. That's how success is built. Not in massive leaps, but in quiet, consistent moments. 5 minutes of focus. 5 minutes of action. 5 minutes of saying yes to your priorities instead of your excuses. It doesn't sound like much, but over time, those minutes turn into habits, and those habits shape your destiny. Freedom isn't something you stumble into. It's something you earn, one disciplined decision at a time. It's easy to overlook small efforts. You think, Leith, what difference does 5 minutes make? But that's the thinking that leads to regret. Because if 5 minutes of discipline feels too small to matter, 5 minutes of procrastination feels just as harmless. And yet, one builds you up while the other tears you down. Success and failure both leave clues, and they both begin in those little windows of decision. Think of 5 minutes like a seed. When you use it well, it grows. It multiplies. That short workout becomes a routine. That one call turns into momentum. That one page you write becomes a book. But when you throw it away, you're not just losing time. You're losing trust in yourself. You're telling your mind, my goals can wait. And that message weakens your belief a little more every day. And here's the real tragedy. Most people don't fail because of one big mistake. They fail because of thousands of tiny moments they didn't take seriously. The 5 minutes they wasted, the opportunity they postponed, the effort they skipped just for today. Then one day, they look back and realize the window is closed and they're locked out by the choices they didn't make. So start valuing those 5 minutes. Protect them. Use them wisely, because freedom doesn't come when the world lets up. It comes when you don't. And 5 minutes of discipline today can unlock decades of reward tomorrow. That's the compound effect. That's the path to freedom. Leads you. You suffer either way. Choose the suffering that builds rather than breaks. That's the unavoidable truth. Life is not a choice between pain and no pain. It's a choice between meaningful pain and meaningless pain. The pain of discipline is sharp, but it has direction. It moves you forward. It has purpose. The pain of regret, though, that pain just lingers. It doesn't teach. It taunts, and that leads you. It's the H of I could have, I should have, but didn't. When you choose the pain of discipline, you're building something strong, something lasting. Every early morning, every focused hour, every sacrifice. It's like laying a brick, and over time, you look up and there's a foundation under your feet. You're standing on progress. But the pain of regret, it leaves you with nothing. No structure, no forward motion, just memories of what you were too afraid or too lazy to build. People think avoiding pain is smart, but it's not. It's just delaying the lesson. You either endure the discomfort of doing the work now, or you face the emptiness of wondering later. One is loud but short, the other is silent but lifelong. The pain of pushing through is temporary, but the pain of wishing you had, that echoes, so choose wisely. Choose the path where your effort leads somewhere. Choose the hard thing now that makes life easier later, because you can suffer for a reason or you can suffer for nothing. But either way, there will be pain. The difference is one builds you, the other breaks you. Regret shows up when discipline doesn't. That's the trade-off. Wherever you fail to show up with discipline, regret takes your place. It doesn't happen all at once. It sneaks in quietly. You skip one workout. You miss one opportunity. You postpone one decision. And at the time, it feels like nothing. But slowly, silently, those little gaps in discipline become open doors where regret walks in and takes a seat in your life. Discipline is your guard. It keeps regret out. It protects your goals, your growth, and your future. When you choose discipline, you shut the door on excuses. You send a message to yourself, I'm committed. But the moment you let your guard down, the moment you start negotiating with your excuses, regret is waiting. Not with punishment, but with reminders. Reminders of what you didn't do, of what you could have had, of who you could become. The pain of discipline is always temporary. It hurts in the moment, but it leads to progress. Regret, on the other hand, is long-lasting. It doesn't just affect your results. It affects your confidence, your energy, your peace of mind. Because deep down, you know you were capable. You just didn't act. The problem with regret is that it always feels heavier than discipline. Discipline asks for effort. Regret demands explanation. Discipline earns pride. Regret breeds shame. Discipline keeps you moving forward. Regret keeps you stuck in the past. You may not enjoy discipline, but you'll always respect yourself for choosing it. That's something regret can never offer. So, don't leave space for regret to enter. Show up with discipline, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's uncomfortable. Because if discipline is absent, regret will take attendance. And once it's in, it's hard to silence. Discipline is temporary pain that creates permanent strength. It's the short-term discomfort that forges long-term power. Yes, it's tough to stay committed. It's hard to say no when everything in you wants to give in. But that little stretch of pain that leads you, that bit of pressure, that's where the growth happens. That's where you prove to yourself that your future means more than your feelings. That leads you. And once you've been through it a few times, something changes inside. You start to crave the growth more than you fear the pain. Every time you embrace discipline, you're training a muscle. Your character muscle, just like lifting weights, it doesn't feel good in the moment. But over time, it builds something that lasts. Strength isn't built in comfort. It's built in the places where you struggle, where you sweat, that leads you, where you feel like quitting but don't. That's the kind of strength no one can give you, and no one can take away. Temporary pain is a small price for permanent results. 1 hour of focused effort can shape your future. One decision to follow through can rewrite your destiny. Discipline gives you the ability to trust yourself, to rely on yourself, to build momentum that compounds over time. It's not punishment, it's preparation. It's not suffering, it's shaping. On the other hand, the pain of regret doesn't build, it doesn't pax, it stays. It doesn't make you stronger. It reminds you that you quit. That's the difference. Discipline hurts now but heals later. Regret feels easy now but wounds later. And the more times you choose discipline, the less power regret has over your life. So lean into the pain that serves you. Push through the moments that test you. Because every time you choose discipline, you're choosing to be stronger tomorrow. And in a world full of easy outs, strength is rare and powerful. Regret is the silent thief that robs your future while you sleep on your dreams. It doesn't kick down the door. It slips in quietly, unnoticed. That leads you while you're distracted by comfort and convenience. You think you've got time. You think you'll start tomorrow. But while you're sleeping on your dreams, regret is busy stealing your potential, one unmade decision at a time. And the worst part, you don't even notice it's happening until the opportunity is gone. This thief doesn't take your energy all at once. It takes your urgency that leads your edge. It takes the fire that once pushed you forward and replaces it with a dull voice that whispers, maybe later. It convinces you to delay the doubt, to play it safe. And by the time you realize what's missing, you're staring at a life filled with what ifs and could have beens. Discipline, on the other hand, is the guard dog. It doesn't sleep. It stands at the door and protects your dreams. It tells the thief, not here, not now. Every time you choose action over comfort, you shut regret out. Every time you say, I'll do it now, instead of, I'll do it someday, you take your future back. You protect it with every disciplined step you take. You see, dreams don't die overnight. They fade. And regret feeds on that slow fade. It loves the dreamer who never becomes a door. It thrives in delay. But discipline turns the light on. It wakes you up. It reminds you that the future is shaped by what you do now, not what you hope for later. So stay awake. Stay alert. Don't let regret steal another day from you. Guard your dreams with discipline. Because while regret may be silent, the life it takes from you echoes forever.